So I have this series on my channel that I started doing a couple years ago where every 6 months I pop on here and I give you reviews of the books I read in that past 6-month period in as brief a form as possible. I am not a very concise person, especially when I'm talking about books. I am more on the verbose side. So this series is meant to allow me to review a larger number of books in a shorter amount of time. If you want to know how I reviewed the books I read in the first half of 2023, I'll link part 1 of this video in the description box. So let's just jump right into the reviews. Starting with July, Organ Meats by K-Ming Chang, a surreal and visceral love letter to the evolution from girl to woman, and the ties that bind us inextricably together. 3 stars. We, by Yevgeny Zamyatin, an inventive imagining of a dystopian future where happiness and freedom are in opposition, resulting in a world diametrically opposed to individuality. 3 stars. The New Me by Hallie Butler, a book that focuses on the myriad ridiculous ways we search for meaning within our capitalistic hellscape, including constantly striving to better ourselves and reveal the new version of ourselves that didn't quite land for me. 3 stars. Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by Ashley Herring Blake. An anxious actress and a heartbroken bisexual come together in this steamy, sweet, and sapphic fake dating romance. 4 stars. The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. An entertaining and engaging mystery that kept me guessing until the final reveal, even though I had an inkling early on, and I'm proud of myself. 5 stars. Moving right on into August, we have Wild Spaces by S.L. Coney, a heartbreaking and surreal exploration of cycles of abuse. 5 stars. Silver Nitrate by Silvia Moreno Garcia, a fascinating concept delivered in the most lackluster way possible with a very unnecessary romance. 2 stars. The Trap by Catherine Ryan Howard, a thriller that started with a bang and ended with a fizzle. 2 stars. A Dead Gin in Cairo by P. Jelly Clark, a fascinating concept limited by its short length that still intrigued me enough to want to continue on in this universe. 3 stars. Until the Last of Me by Sylvain Nevel, a sequel that sadly lost the spark of the original by getting caught up in the minutia and focusing on the wrong characters. I'm still gonna read on in this series, but my hopes have been tempered. 2 stars. Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finney Boylan. The sudden tragic death of a teenage girl reveals secrets kept close and highlights the danger of prejudice, accompanied by a beautiful bee metaphor. 4 stars. The Center by Aisha Menazir Siddiqui. An intriguing concept that didn't go deep enough for my taste, with the central metaphor tying language to colonialism, classism, and capitalistic consumption. 2 stars. Monkey Beach by Eden Robinson, gripping yet mundane, soft and sweet and funny in the in-between moments, pain and grief and anger just beneath, healed over roughly with a scab that breaks and bleeds and must be tended to over and over again. Just gorgeous. 5 stars. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. If Divergent and Throne of Glass had a baby with dragons. 2 stars. Moving into September, How to Keep House While Drowning by Casey Davis, a cleaning manual that was more about helping you to feel better about yourself when you don't actually do the cleaning you have to do than helping you do the cleaning you have to do. 2 stars. These Violent Delights by Micah Nemirever, a violent and unsettling yet beautifully written exploration of a toxic relationship between 2 young gay men, marked by their trauma, loss, pain, and fear of vulnerability, delving into themes of grief, love, loss, and identity. 4 stars. The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, a sloppily written thriller with poor character development, messy plot structure, a laughable number of red herrings, a deeply unconvincing villain, and a therapist main character who is terrible at reading people. 1 star. Island of the Blue Dolphins by Scott Odell, a childhood favorite that fundamentally altered my view of the world by reinforcing both my deep connection with animals and my fundamental belief that women are strong and resilient. 5 stars. Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Moreau, an atmospheric, captivating, and immersive gothic fantasy novel with an absolutely gorgeous descriptive writing style, intricately developed and diverse characters, an engaging plot, and a unique magic system. 5 stars. The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake, a disappointing sequel to an unexpected favorite that somehow managed to make a layered, complex, fascinating, magical world full of interesting and engaging, diverse characters, mind-numbingly dull, with very little plot progression, disjointed philosophical discussions, unresolved subplots, so many unresolved subplots, and sudden, inexplicable shifts in character motivations. 3 stars. But barely. The Jewel and Her Lapidary by Fran Wilde. A cool premise presented in a way that didn't serve it. I think it needed to be extended to be novel length to really be able to explore this fascinating world and dive into the thematic content in a satisfying way. 2 stars. The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. A heart-wrenching look at what makes us human and who deserves love, care, respect, and bodily autonomy, packaged in a horrifying post-apocalyptic world. 5 stars. Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel, an immersive and profoundly feminist retelling of the Hindu legend of Ramayana that is a tragically beautiful exploration of motherhood, womanhood, and trying to do the right thing in seemingly impossible circumstances. 5 stars. Moving on to October, we have The Boy on the Bridge by M.R. Carey, a prequel that delivers just as much heart as the original, tragically beautiful in its exploration of what makes us human. 4 stars. Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, a major missed opportunity of a thriller that just threw away a premise with amazing potential to be a creepy, unsettling psychological horror. 2 stars. Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Yet another book that is focused on what makes us human and who is deserving of bodily autonomy, that started slow, had a rambling middle, and ended in the most gorgeous and heartbreaking way. 4 stars. La Belle et la Bête by Gabrielle Suzanne Barbeau de Villeneuve. A long-winded, oddly paced, and at times disturbing critique of arranged marriage with some interesting elements. 3 stars. La Belle et la Bête children's version by Jeanne-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont, a bite-sized version of the original that improves on its verbosity but flips the central meaning on its head, essentially encouraging young girls to accept their fate in arranged marriage to an old, hairy, beast-like man. 3 stars, mostly for the nostalgia. Elsie, une dernière fois by Catherine Francoeur, a poignant exploration of the grief associated with the loss of a grandparent-like figure in your life that lacked the spookiness that I expected from a ghost story and had a very abrupt climax and ending. 3 stars. Le Misanthrope by Molière. A favorite of mine, this play is full to the brim with sparkling wit and humor, and despite being written in the 17th century, is deeply relevant to today's society, especially when you take into account social media. 5 stars. Woman Eating by Claire Coda, a dreamy, hazy, slow-paced vampire story exploring themes of self-worth, loneliness, and purpose. 3 stars. The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, a slow, creeping horror with stunning descriptions of the eerie setting and characters. 5 stars. Devil House by John Darnielle, an unexpectedly emotional piece of literary fiction exploring the ethics of true crime as a genre, with an engaging narrative, introspective themes, and beautifully written, if at times baffling, prose. 4 stars. Rouge by Mona Awad, a surreal and deeply unsettling exploration of Eurocentric beauty standards and grief, cleverly critiquing the beauty industry with dark humor and an eerie atmosphere. 5 stars. Carmilla by J. Sheridan Le Fanu, the first true vampire story that explores themes of queerness and female agency in the early 1800s, with an engaging narrative and layered characters despite its very short length. 5 stars. Survivor Type by Stephen King, a short story that relies entirely on shock value and gore that was repulsive without any emotional impact or psychological horror, despite the premise being ripe with potential. 1 star. The White People by Arthur Machen, a unique and intellectually engaging short story that dives into themes of good and evil, sin and sainthood, told in a single, very unsettling run-on sentence that left a deep impact on me. 5 stars. A Haunting on the Hill by Elizabeth Hand. A disappointing read lacking in scares, character development, and thematic depth, with an extremely unlikable cast of characters, wasted potential, lack of emotional impact, and a very frustrating and honestly a little bit offensive depiction of theater people. 1 star. A Whistle and I'll Come to You, My Lad by M.R. James. Surprisingly spooky, with unexpected humor and great characters, with a fantastic build-up to the genuinely terrifying climax. 5 stars. The Dunwich Horror by H.P. Lovecraft. A slow start with a creepy atmosphere that ramps up in the second half to be genuinely disturbing and effectively scary. 4 stars. The Push by Ashley Audrain, a generational exploration of reluctant mothers and their fraught relationships with their daughters. 4 stars. Getting into November, we have Lone Women by Victor Laval, an intriguing concept of being a lone Black woman on the frontier at the turn of the century that became overly complicated and fell apart in the second half. 3 stars. You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Bayron, a YA slasher with a promising start that slowly devolved into cartoonish villainy and had a very questionable ending. 3 stars. The September House by Carissa Orlando. Entertaining dark humor with engaging themes that slowly ramped up to a genuinely disturbing and horrifying climax. A haunted house as a metaphor that I found fascinating, with a main character that I struggled to connect to. 3 stars. Dead 11 by Jimmy Giuliano. A disappointment with poor writing that failed to sufficiently explore its themes of grief and being trapped living in the past. 2 stars. Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huang, an unexpectedly poignant love letter to self-sacrificing and loving immigrant parents, and the contrasting pain and joy of music, sprinkled throughout a grotesque cautionary tale exploring the implications of unattainable Eurocentric beauty standards. 5 stars. Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. Enjoyable enough, but disappointing, lacking those horror elements, and not doing enough to explore its very interesting themes of religious indoctrination and toxic familial relationships, tied up way too neatly with an anticlimactic ending. 3 stars. The Reformatory by Tanana Reeve Dew. An exhausting, grueling, intense, and terrifying journey that moved me to tears more than once. This book will stay with me for a very long time. 5 stars. Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. A timeless exploration of the dynamics within the gay community and the contradictions and conflicts within gay identity. The myriad ways shame can steal our joy and leave us alone and grieving. 5 stars. And finally, moving into December with Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina. The heartbreaking and gut-wrenching story of just a few of the far too many missing and murdered Indigenous women of North America. 5 stars. The Gilda Stories by Jewel Gomez. A cult classic lesbian vampire story that teases apart issues of race, sexuality, and the climate crisis that felt a little disjointed in the final chapter added for the 25th anniversary. 3 stars. Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. A slow start that builds to a poignant finish. A young, naive princess finally taking her fate into her own hands. A minor character in Greek mythology being given center stage at last. 3 stars. Minor Detail by Adania Shibli. Bleak, unsettling, and devastating. A Minor Detail takes an uncompromising look at the realities of life in an occupied Palestine. 5 stars. And last, but certainly not least, we have A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. A fairy tale of self-discovery, the origin story of a great wizard whose greatest enemy follows him closely with every step like a shadow. 4 stars. And that brings us to the end of this video. Those are all the books I read in the second half of 2023, reviewed in a single sentence each, even if some of those sentences were a little rambly. I did my best, okay? Don't forget to watch part 1 if you missed it. It'll be linked down below. Thank you to my patrons, as always, for your patronage. I appreciate you all so incredibly much. And some of my favorite books of this year were book club picks for my book club over on Patreon. So if you want to read amazing books every month with a group of fantastically intelligent and kind and insightful people, have amazing discussions, develop a community around reading, I highly recommend you join our book club club on Patreon. It's my favorite place to be. I love it so much. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a bookish emoji in the comments so I know you're a real one and made it all the way to the end. And if you're up for it, leave a 1-sentence review of your favorite and least favorite reads of 2023. I really want to see those contrasts. But that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you really soon in my next one. Bye, friends.